Charles T. How old are you?
I'm 42.
42, going to be 43 this year in August?
That's correct.
Okay, I remembered. Good. Don't ask me the date. The 26th.
Yes.
Hell
Don't ask me
yeah.
the date. You already knew the date.
Okay, I know, but sometimes I forget. Anywho, I didn't forget this time. How tall are you?
Feet 8 inches tall. Is this like an interview? Like, am I being interviewed for something?
Oh yeah, for life.
I'm being
You're
interviewed
being
for what?
interviewed for life. No, no, no. What I'm doing, just roll with it.
All
I
right.
want to give the listeners a visual because some people are just going to listen to it and they're like, what does this guy even look like? Yeah.
Okay.
So thanks for interrupting. How tall are you?
I'm 5 feet 8 inches tall.
5'8". Okay, great. How much do you weigh currently?
I just weighed myself right before I got on. I weigh 148 pounds.
Okay, perfect. How would you describe your build?
I don't know how to describe my build.
I would say more on the getting towards the athletic side or athletic.
I like that. That is an answer that works for me.
Did you have something that kind of a word that kind of popped into your head
Like
before I said athletic?
slimmer, slim.
Slimmer?
Yeah.
Okay, that also works. Okay, great, 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 great. And in honor of your Chinese heritage, I drank a cup of China green tips tea, although you are 100% American.
In honor of my American heritage, I have black coffee.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Oh, so the first time I had you on the podcast, it was totally impromptu. It was like 30 minutes long, and we were just jibber jabbering about, where you're currently at because you had recently left your job, which was soul sucking. On your body, not necessarily on your soul. So, soul sucking probably is the wrong word. I
I
would
have
say
a
it's
better word.
draining
Enfattening.
and
It was an
fattening. It
yeah.
fattened you up.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're blaming the job for you gaining I don't know how many pounds.
Okay, I take that back, but I did gain. I was like 172 pounds when I left that job.
Yeah, yeah, you fattened up because that wasn't muscle. That wasn't a combo deal.
Well, it was a combo, but like quarter pounder with cheese and supersized fries combo.
Nicely done. I was thinking of that. I was thinking of double double.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did double double.
All right. So mostly that was from having such a sedentary lifestyle with that job. You were on the computer for God knows how many hours a day.
Yeah, like 11 hours a day.
So what does your current lifestyle look like? I mean, how many hours a day are you on the computer for
Not
work and pleasure?
I I think I'm on the computer like probably 6 hours a day.
Okay. Does that seem much more manageable?
Way more manageable.
What was it before?
11.
11? You almost cut that number in half.
Yeah, basically.
So, okay, okay. You're not working nearly as much, right?
No.
Okay, so that's obviously made a significant difference in why you've been able to get healthier.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a school of thought, like especially if you follow these fitness influencers, it's like
And I do.
they have these like videos. Like there's this guy that shows him starting at like 5 a.m. and he's dunking his face in a bowl of ice water. I'm like, what the hell is this? So there's a school of thought that these things are possible. However, I will say, having worked an 11-hour a day job, you don't like experience having the vitality, like the stamina to do anything once that job is over. You just want to go to sleep.
Oh, totally. And that's not only in your profession, but I work with a lot of people on set, makeup artists, production, and just other people in lots of other industries. When they're done with work, they're exhausted. The last thing they want to do typically is work out, move their bodies, and exert more energy. They want to kick up their feet and they want to be with their family or be on their own and just decompress. So, what have you been doing for workouts? What does it look like in your life right now? How often are you working out and what are you doing?
So we'll take me through my week beginning on Sunday. So Sunday is usually a day where I'll do a yoga class and or run. A certain someone strong-armed me into downloading a app called Run with Hal, which has me running like 4 to 5 days a week.
You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you. So yoga and or running on Sunday. On Monday's kind of like a bigger day. So I'll usually do like I go to a rock climbing gym and they have a class called Climb Fit, which is like full body kettlebells. It's CrossFit in name.
Let
in
let's
all but
let's
name.
just call it what it is. It's CrossFit.
Yeah. So I'll do that followed by yoga class like right after. And then Tuesdays is running. Wednesdays is the climb fit and also running. And then Thursdays running and Friday, Saturday off. Oh God, I'm like, as I'm saying this, I'm just getting exhausted.
Okay, well,
It's a lot.
listen, you just started incorporating this amount of running like a week ago. So let's be fair.
Okay,
Before
I
that,
will be
it was
fair.
no running.
Yeah. So it was all the other stuff. So I was, the Sunday yoga, Monday climb fit, Monday yoga, Wednesday climb fit, and then rock climbing usually like on a Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, it was like 4, maybe 5 days a week of yoga or climb fit,
Yeah.
aka CrossFit.
Yeah.
And you just started increasing your energy expenditure significantly when I asked you to train for a 5K with me. And the reason why I asked you is because I would like us to consider doing our first marathon together. And I think the smart way to do it is to do it in baby steps, not only for you, but for me, because going from zero to a marathon is, it's a lot on the body and it's a lot on the mind. So I appreciate you starting with the 5K with me, and we'll just go from there. Your diet has changed a lot too, because I saw a lot of the foods that you were eating when you had this previous job, when you were sitting at the computer for 11 hours a day. You didn't have as much time to cook. I don't know if you had any interest in eating healthy at that time, but what was your nutrition and what is it now?
It's kind of like hard for me to think back about what I was eating. I can for sure tell you I was snacking more. And then also I had like a carbier breakfast. I had like toast or like a bagel and eggs in the morning. I just started my day with a lot of calories.
Yeah.
So, and I just wasn't eating as clean. Again, I can't remember exactly what I was eating, but it wasn't how I eat now. Might be easier to just say what I eat now.
Yeah.
So, like almost without fail, my breakfast is like a breakfast smoothie. And my smoothie is super simple. It is frozen blueberries, protein powder, ice, spinach, blend.
And
That
what kind of protein powder are you using?
I'm using Orgain, which is like a mix of pea and rice and like some other vegetable proteins. I only use that because like whey-based proteins kind of make me a little gassy, so I'd like to avoid that if at all possible.
So you're using a plant-based protein powder.
Yeah,
And it's really, really simple. You don't have a lot of calories in that.
yeah,
Blueberries, spinach, protein, water, ice. Is that it?
that's it.
Okay, that's a really lean smoothie, and that might be all you need. And then what's your lunch looking like? Does it change or
It
is it
doesn't
pretty
change it much.
consistent?
So for the most part, I meal prep a lot of chicken. Like I bake chicken, spice it up real good. I mostly have just chicken. I might
Yeah.
do
What
variations on the chicken. Sometimes
okay.
it's with rice, sometimes it's with vegetables, sometimes I make a sandwich, but
Yeah.
it's almost always chicken.
Okay. It's consistent. It's consistently chicken that's been baked and you use spices to give it some flavor and to make it interesting. How about dinner?
Almost always the same thing.
My God, are you eating all the chicken right now?
I'm eating all the chicken. Yeah.
How's that working out for you?
I love it. It's because I discovered a way to bake it in such a way that the chicken remains like super moist,
Mm.
like while still being thoroughly cooked. So it's super palatable. Even like after reheating in the microwave, it's super palatable. So I'm able to, just eat it all the time, and it's not like some dry hunk of leather, or whatever,
Or rubber.
or rubber. Yeah.
Yeah. You're the one actually who taught me how to cook this chicken. And so I've been doing it myself. And I have found that in order to kill all the cooties, you have to cook it to an internal temperature of 165 degrees. What I do to maintain to keep it moist and not drying it out and the flavor is I cook it to about 157, 158. And then once I pull it from the oven, it's continuing to cook, and then I store it properly. But you're the one, so thank you very much, who got me into meal prepping chicken. And you're cooking like an entire tray
Yeah.
of chicken. You're not doing one chicken breast at a time. You're cooking like an entire Costco package. And have you found that to be useful?
Yeah, because I think I know some people in my life who've had issues with diet, and when You just go into their fridge and go into their pantry, and you can see why. They got all the bad things,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the
What's it?
fun things.
Name one bad thing.
Cereal. Even
Oh,
maybe some people will disagree, like the keto cereal. They got
right.
those. Like I don't know. I think it's if you just have a diet full of mostly whole foods, like that's just easier to manage and you're less prone to like overeating than if your pantry had lots of different types of like little goodies. Because trust me, I love the Trader Joe's peanut butter pretzels. And
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna lie, I do keep like a bag of them around at all times because I do like to snack on them from time to time.
Do you
But
have portion control?
yeah, I
Good
have
for
I have
you.
a I have a bowl that is my, my peanut butter pretzel bowl, and I fill it halfway.
And do you ever fill it up twice in a day? Wow, that's impressive. Not a lot of people are able to do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. I would take that special peanut butter pretzel bowl and I would fill it up and then I would like top it off and then I would think, well, I ran 5 miles today. Let me have another one. And I justify it in my mind, but you're saying that you don't do that.
No, in fact, after it hasn't been a full week of running yet, but I how many miles have I run this week? Probably like 11, something like that. I really don't need extra calories. Like what I've been eating up until this point has been totally sufficient.
That's what I was going to ask you next because you have been ramping up your workouts and your energy expenditure. We have to consider you might at some point need more calories. And I love that you are aware enough to know that at this point you are still satiated. The amount of food that you are consuming is properly fueling you. And so watch out because guess who's going to get leaner and stronger?
Who?
You.
Oh, me.
You. Yeah, you.
Okay, cool.
And when if we continue doing this, if you continue running and running longer, running faster, running harder, you will at some point need some more calories and just eating more of what you've been eating is a great idea. You've been eating mostly whole foods, which I love hearing because I totally agree with you. They're more satiating. They're good for the digestion. It sounds like it's working. And so we don't want to do anything differently than that. Increasing the amount of protein is always a great idea. Just making sure that you're drinking enough water to help move that protein and process that protein because it takes calories to break down that protein and utilize it. And you need a vehicle for that, AKA water.
Yeah,
How
I
do you
drink like
feel your water is?
I drink around 100 to 120 ounces of water a day, so I feel like that's pretty good.
You feel like you're properly hydrated as he takes a sip from his
Mhm.
water bottle. Perfect. Awesome. Great. Okay. What do you need to work on?
Um, Sleep, like getting consistent good sleep is something that has eluded me for some time. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be in bed by 10, but oftentimes I don't sleep like soon.
Are you playing on your phone when you're in bed at 10?
Yeah.
Okay, well there's something right there that we're aware of that's probably contributing to you not falling asleep. One thing I did last night was I listened to a meditation, a guided meditation on YouTube, and I just had the phone playing near my ear and I closed my eyes and I just laid there and it totally relaxed me. And by the end of the meditation, I was ready for bed and I fell right asleep. I'm wondering if you could try something like that or if you would be willing to let go of the phone.
That is, people talk about phones being an addiction. Like that's true. And also there's I play video games on my phone. So there's my little games that right around the time that bedtime happens is when the game resets. And I have to do my daily objectives. So that's also
Nerd.
part of the
Okay,
equation.
great. So
Guilty.
I know, and we're friends. We're best friends, so it's like fine. I can deal with that. But what I'm wondering is why do we have to play the game at 10 p.m.? Why can't you just keep it as a treat and get excited to wake up the next morning and then play the game? Why don't
That
we
is an
start
option.
yeah, why don't we start thinking of it as like a peanut butter pretzel bowl and you get to have your peanut butter pretzels, if you will, first thing in the morning or whenever you think is a delightful time to do that. But I'm telling you, you are hurting your sleep if you are doing it at 10 p.m. at night when your body and your mind want to relax and they want to recover because you've been doing so well with your workouts, you've been doing so well with your nutrition. It's going to be vitally important that you start paying more attention to your recovery. When I asked you to be on this podcast, I remember calling you and you sounded like an 85-year-old, like broken man. You were like, I'm so sore. And I was just like, okay, all right. And I asked you why, and you think it's because of all the workouts, and it most likely is. I want to remind you and anybody who's listening that soreness does not equate to doing things right workout wise. A lot of people have this misconception that you have to get incredibly sore in order to gain all the muscle and make all the gains. That is absolutely not true. You don't have to be that sore. If you're going to be sore, let's make it a little bit sore, right? So why do you, Charles, think that you were so sore this morning and right now?
Because I did my climb fit class immediately followed by a 3 mile run.
Yeah. And when you were describing what you did in your climb fit class, you were doing all legs and you were doing heavy leg stuff with kettlebells and right?
Yeah.
What were the three movements you told me you did?
So I did a jumping squat with the kettlebell. I did like a step up where you hold the kettlebell, step onto a higher platform, and then so you raise up, but then you slowly do a decline to the ground. And then I also did walking lunges, unweighted.
So that was legs, legs, and legs. Two of the
Yeah.
movements were with weight. You also had a jump in there on the first one, and then you did a 3 mile run. And what people don't know is the day before, you accumulated 5 miles of running with 5 times 400 meter sprints, if you will. They weren't sprints if someone was to watch you, but they probably felt like sprints.
Hey, don't call me out like that. How dare you?
I know, no, it's fine. And the only reason why I'm calling you out is because I did the same workout and it felt like a sprint to me, but I know I looked like I was just regular running. So just know that when you start any new program, and in this instance, it's the running 4 times a week. It's going to feel hellish for the first week or two until your body starts to acclimate. You know, the body likes to stay the same. And so we have to adjust. And because of the amount of training you're doing right now, you've got to pay more attention to your recovery. And so I'm really glad we're touching on sleep. So is it possible for you to put down the phone at 10? I know you don't like to read like real books, right?
Yeah,
What could
I
you
have,
do instead?
I could just actually literally put it down and put my ass to sleep.
And just lay there?
Yeah.
All right, I challenge you to try that for 1 week. And I'll follow up with you personally and find out what's going on with that. If that is just too much, you can't do it. The addiction is too strong. And I'm being funny, but I'm also like I understand that we are as a society, we are tied to our phones just because you can do anything on your phone, right? And we're going to try and break an addiction, but just talking about it is the first step, I think. But maybe you could try a guided meditation. That way you're still using your phone, but you're not looking at it, you're listening to it. If you're open to that, I can send you a guided meditation.
Sure. Send me the guided meditation.
All right. So you try it your way. And if that's becoming uncomfortable, try the guided meditation and let's just see. How about stress management? What's your stress levels like right now? I know you're not working nearly as much, and so that has probably helped, but I'm sure you have other things going on in your personal life that could be stressful. How are your stress levels right now?
Actually, I think my stress levels are quite low. The most amount of there's like deadline stress, when you have things, like I manage a YouTube channel and like prior to launching a new thing, it's always like, oh my God, like I don't have any time for anything, which is like ridiculous. I have like the same amount of time that anyone else has, but it's like the experience kind of ramps up until a new, like YouTube video drops. But overall, I would say very low levels of stress.
Nice. And when you are presented with a stressful situation, how do you handle it and how do you get through it?
Usually I walk outside.
For how long?
I do a little walk around my neighborhood, which is like a mile and a half. So I don't know, like half hour.
Yeah. So you use walking outside as a way to kind of relieve yourself of stress. Any other tools you like to rely on?
I think just inherently, like doing yoga can be a stress management tool because it forces you to really engage with what your body's doing, engage with your breath, be very intentional about breathing and moving. So I think just inherently that has stress relieving properties because you're forced to be present.
I totally agree with you. I am a big fan of yoga. You know, all of this sounds really peachy, but you didn't this is not how you were raised.
No.
In fact, you were a fat kid.
I wasn't always a fat kid, but I had a couple fat years.
I see. Well, I remember you describing yourself as a fat kid, so that's why I used that term.
Yeah, so I think the key point, see, when I was in elementary school, I loved playing basketball and I would always play basketball at recess. Then one day, I think it was in the fifth grade, I just took a bad dive. Like I was sprinting, I tripped, and then I fell on my knee, and then like a little piece of asphalt or something got like lodged in my knee. Wasn't injured, but it was like a really bad, I still have a scar from that. And I just stopped playing basketball. And let me tell you, like I don't know how many miles I must have run, playing basketball at recesses and lunch, but it must have been several miles because within a year, I think I was in the fifth grade around like 70 something pounds. I got up to like 110 the next year.
You gained 40 pounds?
And then the year after that, I was like 130 pounds. And mind you, I hadn't grown vertically yet. So you're talking about like a 5'5", 5'6" kid weighing, like 120, 130 pounds.
Yeah.
I wore
Wow.
in the seventh grade. I was on a trip to Japan and I had to buy new pants because I didn't have pants that fit because we had to wear I was an exchange student, so I had to get pants that worked for the Japanese school's like uniform code. And I bought like a pair of size like 36 like waist pants
As a sixth grader?
as a seventh grader. Yeah.
As a seventh grader? So are you saying that you grew a lot larger
Horizontally. Yeah.
horizontally in sixth and seventh grade? And then did the weight start coming off once you hit eighth grade?
Yeah. Because I think we had mandatory PE. I think that was the thing at that time. And then like I always ran a minimum of 1 mile every day for PE. And it's like that is the only reason because I don't think my diet changed. I don't think anything else in my life changed. I probably had more stress, but just the act of running that 1 mile, which is like isn't even a lot, but just consistently 5 days a week.
That's really interesting because you hadn't gone through puberty yet, I'm guessing, when you were in sixth grade.
No,
Do you remember what year you started going through puberty?
it would have been like seventh, maybe eighth grade.
Okay. I am wondering if what I'm hearing is that you had this bad fall during basketball that didn't cause any like hospital
No,
injuries,
not at
but you
all.
got a little bit some asphalt in your knee. And I mean, how did that feel emotionally when it happened? Do you remember?
It felt like actually don't think after that. I mean, I've played basketball from time to time, but I totally lost my love for basketball. See, at this time, this was when, the dream team was happening. This is like the era of the NBA when you had Jordan and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, like all the greats were playing at this one time in history. And like I had books about basketball. I would stay up late reading them. I was very into it. And then after that, like I didn't watch basketball. I didn't play basketball. I didn't think about basketball.
Because of that one fall, that one heinous fall?
Yeah, it really got in my head.
Do you remember where you were and if who was around when you had that fall?
I mean, I was playing the game, so it was whoever I was playing with at that time at recess. I
You
can
were
even
playing for
envision.
fun in school.
I was playing for fun.
I'm sorry I interrupted. You were saying I even have a visual?
Yeah, like I don't know if this school still exists, but it was Flora Vista Elementary School in Encinitas, and I can picture where the court is in relation to where the street is. Like I know exactly where I fell. This is like how vivid this memory of this injury is,
Yeah.
because it's like it had gotten so in my head about the fall. In the moment that it happened, I wasn't like really hurt. I mean, there was a bleeding thing and, they had to get the rock out, but it wasn't a big deal. But it was more like this thing that I love I can get injured doing. And that is like a shocker, at that age. It's like, oh, I am not invincible.
Do you remember anybody helping you up or showing any concern?
I don't remember that at all. Like, I don't have any memory of like the immediate, like after the fall. So I don't know that anyone helped me up. I do know that I would have been able to get up on my own because it's not like I blew my knee out or anything. It's just I tripped and fell in a weird way where a rock or a piece of asphalt got in.
So you remember everything up until
Yeah,
the fall itself, but nothing afterwards. So you don't know
yeah.
if kids were laughing?
No, I don't know if kids were laughing. I really don't think they would have been laughing because, as I picture the event in my mind's eye, it was literally I was running a little too fast. I was not paying attention to where my feet were going, and I, just tripped.
Right. But
It's like a
isn't
very
it,
normal thing.
it is normal, but it's really, really interesting that you remember, what the area looked like, the
Yeah,
exact place where the fall happened, but you don't remember how you felt afterwards, if anybody helped you, if anybody made fun of you. The memory is really interesting like that. It will remember what it wants to remember, and it will try to do its best to protect us by
yeah,
blocking certain memories out. That's why I was asking about that, because to me it seems like a significant moment in your life, because you stopped playing basketball. This one thing that brought you joy, you stopped altogether. You stopped following it, you stopped playing, and and then you gained all this weight. Now, if you weren't active, do you remember what you were eating at the time? Like what kind of food your parents were feeding you and what kind of food you had access to? Because I remember, did your parents run a Chinese restaurant at that time?
yeah, they did. So the food that I had access to was all of like everything in Chinese fast food. So I had that, or if I got bored of that, I had pizza, and not like real good pizza. I'm talking like Stouffer's French bread pizza.
I know. You know what? At the time, I thought that that was good pizza.
It's kind of crazy because there was in San Diego, there's a place called Filippi's, and our restaurant was next to a Filippi's. And like it's not my favorite pizza, but it's compared to like Stouffer's, it is gourmet. And I
Right.
hated the Filippi's. I wanted my Stouffer's.
Yeah. So it sounded like you had frozen pizzas, or you had pretty much all the fast food Chinese food you could eat. Noodles, rice, stuff like that. So heavy, heavy carbs, and probably heavy on the oil and heavy on the salt. And I'm guessing low quality vegetable oils.
What oils did mine? Definitely
Well,
wasn't
the
olive
food was
oil.
certain, the foods were, it wasn't olive oil. I was thinking the exact same
Yep.
thing. You know,
Yeah.
when you're running a little restaurant like that and you're trying to make as much money as possible, you're typically going to use cheaper ingredients.
It was definitely a seed oil and like a lower quality one because I remember the my, the jugs that would come in from like the food service company. They were like can't really see, but it's like really big jugs.
Like half your body size.
Yeah,
Yeah. And when you weren't playing basketball, you were hanging out at the restaurant in a closet with no windows.
in a closet. Oh yeah. So like it's hard to like describe how small this is because like I think some of the closets in the places that I've lived have been bigger than this closet. This was a not like a clothes closet. This is a broom closet, which is enough to put your mopping bucket, a broom, and some other miscellaneous cleaning items. So because I at the time I was living in Oceanside, but my parents' restaurant was in Encinitas, so I didn't want to like drive back and forth. So I stayed at this restaurant. I It's like maybe 2 feet wide, 2 feet wide, yeah, maybe 2.5 feet wide by about 4 feet long is how big this space was.
But there was enough room for them to put a little TV in there for you? And when you hung out in that little broom closet, was the door closed?
Sometimes.
Man, that's just interesting to go from like playing basketball and being active and stuff to like hanging out in like the tiniest little room and being sitting in front of the boob tube. That's like a totally different lifestyle. But when you were forced to do PE, and I'm so glad that schools do that, by the way, when they require you to do PE, I'm all for that. I sounded like the weight started to come off for you.
Yeah.
And then when did you basically become skinny? Because I've seen pictures of you in high school and you looked skinny.
The weight started to drop off around ninth grade, which is when I was doing PE like every, once a day. Times a day might change, but it was always once a day.
Yeah. And I've seen your weight fluctuate quite a bit over the years. You know,
Yeah.
I met you, I believe, when you were 24 years old. And so I've known you for almost 20 years now. And it's been a long time. And I've seen your weight fluctuate a lot. I've seen you go on the bodybuilder diet without doing the bodybuilding.
Good God.
I
Don't
still
remind me.
remember that. I still remember that. Oh my God. And I was like, wow, that's not smart. You are just gaining fat only.
Yeah.
Um, and I've seen you, I mean, when I first met you, you had super, super long hair and you looked really, really slim. And I would say you weren't probably working out at that time when we worked at the Geek Squad, right?
I wasn't working out at all. So I think at that time I was like around 135 pounds.
Wow. And you were 5'8". No wonder why people kept confusing you for me.
Oh yeah, that was.
There were so many times in that when people would say, "Hello, ladies," and I would just die. I would die because your hair was long. We were the
Yep.
same height and basically
Yep.
the same weight, and people weren't looking too closely. Like you don't look like a girl, but people weren't looking too closely. They just immediately assumed long hair, slimmer build. That was
I
funny.
remember I got so fed up with that I decided to cut my hair short, and I've never gone back to having like even moderately long hair.
That is too funny. I didn't know. I couldn't remember why you cut your hair, but you do you. And now and this isn't the first time you've been fit, by the way. We've trained for Spartan races together. We've summited Mount Whitney together. We've done a lot of like fitness challenges, a lot of fitness challenges. So I think that your fitness journey kind of looks like up and down, up and down. So what's your, I can't get this out of my mind. I just want to talk about it just a little bit more. But when you started putting on the weight in sixth and seventh grade, I remember you telling me that you were getting bullied during that time.
Yeah. I don't know if it had to do with the weight because that never came up as a topic, but I was still kind of like I wasn't tall, so like when you looked at me, it's like you perceived me as someone that like you could target. It's actually kind of funny because I remember as a bigger eighth grader, there was a crew of like bunch of really skinny kids and like this ringleader like would bully me every day. And then one day I just got up to his face and I pushed him. Like you can tell when someone's not for real when they're like for sure quivering their lips because he pushed them really hard.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. And while I've been bullied, I've never been a victim.
You are always able to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, or get other people to stand up for me.
That's cool. Did you get bullied before you put on the weight?
The only bully that I had prior to gaining the weight was this kid from Saudi Arabia who he made up a song that I'm going to sing for you right now because I think it's funny and delightful. So he called me Charlie Tuna, like kind of for starfish tuna. And then the song that he would sing is Charlie Tuna, chicken of the sea. And I was so pissed off. I was so pissed off every time he did that. I was like, I didn't have a good retort. Like it was so clever.
It's kind of funny and fun, and that's what stupid little kids do. That's what we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So he did that. He did that like what, fifth grade, you said?
Like fourth grade. So I was still skinny, at that time.
Right. Do you remember why you were getting bullied in the sixth or seventh grade? Like, what did people say?
I actually don't remember.
That's interesting. That's interesting. That might worth exploring with a therapist.
I do remember like later on, like when I was in high school, I was bullied one time and It was definitely a racial thing. And, you know, like I mentioned, I got other people to stand up like on my behalf. Like I had a really tall, like 6'2", like hockey player, like step in, you know, to
Oh,
get
I
this
don't
other
know
guy back
about
off.
this. You got picked on and it had something to do with your race?
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened?
Yeah, I mean this guy would always he was older. I was in either the ninth or 10th grade, and this guy would have been in the 12th grade. And he would always make comments about me, like during breaks. And then like one day it like I think I talked back. I definitely talk back. I'm a talk backer, so you know, like I don't give a shit if you know do something. I that's never gonna stop me from talking back. So I talked back, and he was gonna like hit me or something, and then this tall, like you know, redheaded, fair hockey player just stepped in and was like, "Hey, no, can't do that."
Are you serious? Are you confusing the guy who helped me out when I was being bullied in the 6th grade? Are you
No,
making
this
this
isn't.
up? Because I literally had a redhead that was like so tall. I don't know if he was 6'2". What's up with like savior redheads?
Well, if you just like look at the history of the oppression of the Irish people, I think there might be something culturally that, you know, makes them like a little bit more sympathetic to victims of bullying or whatever.
I'm gonna ask you a question because I don't, this is the first time in like about 20 years since I've known you that I'm hearing this particular story. And that's the beauty about a friendship. You're never going to learn everything. Like you're always
Yeah,
going to learn new things. And I wonder if that redheaded guy helping you out, stand up for you, I wonder if that played an influence in you having, you really liking redheaded girls.
maybe. But I will say, when I was locked in that little closet, I had TV with the little antennas, and there were only a couple programs that I could get. One program was Star Trek: The Next Generation, and there's only a couple women on that show. One is Dr. Beverly Crusher, redhead. The other is Counselor Troy, curly hair brunette. What are
Oh
the
my
types
gosh.
that?
And those are your types.
Yeah,
You want a Star Trek looking lady. And you got one, kind of, right?
yeah,
Your girlfriend she's brunette with curly hair, yes?
that's right.
Wow, you manifested that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about relationships and the role that it plays in your mental health because I think this is really important and it's something that we don't talk about as much. But growing up with your parents, you're also an only child. You received love and you gave love in your own ways, right? And how would you say the kind of love that you saw in your household and anybody else that was like, a significant influence in your life, how did that play a role in the kind of relationships you would pursue once you were an adult?
That's interesting because you asked two questions in there. So let me answer the first one before I do the second one. As to the types of love that I witnessed or experienced, you know that one love language book? I forgot what it's called.
The Five Love Languages,
The
yes,
five
by
love
Gary
languages.
Chapman.
Yeah, so I mostly witnessed acts of service. That was like the thing that I saw. That
Okay.
was the only form of affection that really I think I ever witnessed, experienced.
Acts of service. So when one person does something kind for the other person, whether it's cleaning for them, cooking
Yeah.
for them, some sort of service-based thing, but you never saw affection, you never heard words of affirmation, you never
Nope.
saw gifts, and you never saw
Oh,
quality
gifts.
time.
Yeah, sure. Gifts and acts of service. I forget about gifts, but yeah, yeah,
And quality time is the other one.
yeah. I don't, you know, like in everyone around me was worked a lot, so I don't know that I even saw quality time. It was gifts and acts of service that I was most exposed to.
And you didn't see anybody being affectionate, you're like parents or family members that you saw often. Nobody was hugging, kissing, touching, cuddling, none of that.
No,
Nobody was saying I love you.
I think I was like being forced to say it by my mom. Say you love me.
You were being forced to say I love you by your mom.
Yeah, you know,
But
like it's the typical thing. You're being dropped off at school. It's like I love you. Say it back.
yes, yes, very typical. Also, I don't know if this plays a role. You tell me. I know that you're 100% American and your parents are Chinese who were raised in Vietnam. Do you think culturally how they show affection is different from Other cultures like the American culture?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, their culture plays a huge factor here.
How so?
I don't think I ever saw like a parent like hugging their kid until I went to a sleepover at, one of my friend's house.
So you never received hugs?
No.
And did your wow, I just want to take a moment right there. I want to give you a hug right now.
I'm gonna
That
do it through
breaks
the
my
screen.
heart. That breaks my heart. Did you feel loved?
That's an interesting question. I think I did, but like
Yeah.
I would experience love, when I received like either quality time or a gift or act of service.
All right. So if I'm understanding correctly, let me recap. Growing up culturally, this definitely plays a role, but you didn't really receive any affection, no hugs or anything like that until later on in life. And the kind of love that you did witness were more like acts of service and then like gift giving, but not really words of affirmation other than the mandatory I love you when you're getting dropped off at school and being forced to say it back to your mom. How do you think this has affected you in your romantic relationships?
I would say I'm trying to draw a line here because I don't think I've drawn this particular line before. Not draw a line like a boundary, but like draw a connecting line. I would say when and this applies to probably all relationships, not just romantic ones, but especially romantic ones. I don't open up initially. It takes something for me to open up when being with new people because I'm like very guarded. Like I've been doing the same climb fit class for like pretty much like over a year, and I only started hanging out with people like a couple months ago.
It takes you a while to trust people. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Wow, that makes perfect sense to me. And then when you do trust them, do you let them in completely or do you still do it gradually and you only let them see pieces of you?
gradually.
Gradually. I can attest that that has definitely been our friendship for sure. And there has been more trust and more reliability as we've gotten to know each other. But I would say that we were both guarded because I am the same way. I can be, but I will say that as an adult now, because of knowing myself and being the kind of person I've always wanted to be, I trust more easily. Do you feel like you still are guarded or are you trusting more easily as you get older and continue working on yourself?
I think it's improved.
I would say it has.
Yeah.
One thing we haven't even talked about at all is you worked for a company focusing on personal growth and professional development, all of that for
Yeah.
like 5 solid years plus. How has that experience improved or not improved your life?
I would say like the ability to see people. Like I can just I don't even know if I'm describing that right, but like that's the language that I have for it. Being able to see who you are without needing to know a lot about you. Like I have acquired the skill to be able to see people and, just get where they're at. Like I find that I'm a lot more sensitive to my surroundings, sensitive to how people are in the moment, what they're dealing with, even if they haven't said anything. Because I listen.
You're a better listener.
Yeah.
And when you say that you see people without really knowing them all that well, it's probably because you've learned how to be more present with them and pick up on the subtle cues that everybody puts out there, by the way.
Yeah. I was thinking about this as a topic for like a project that I've had in my head, but there is no training, like, or at least no standardized, formalized training for how to interact in the world. In school, you have classes that deal with your physical fitness, with arithmetic, with, language and grammar, with science. But when it comes to interacting with other people, we just kind of throw people into groups and then hope it freaking works out. Like how
Yeah,
crazy is that? Like
it's totally crazy.
you can't start a company. You can't do anything without other people. And yet there's this area where it's not possible to like receive a standardized training on how to be with other people.
I totally agree. And I feel like if you're lucky enough to get a parent or have parents who are effective communicators who have done the work and do the work and can model effective communication with their children, then you're lucky and you are blessed.
I was at coffee a couple days ago, and I saw this little child that already possessed the ability to read people and read a room. It was like crazy. And like I saw her mother and it was like, oh yeah, this is like a very socially aware person also. I was like, wow,
It made sense. That
yeah.
child was modeling their mother's behavior.
It's like a 3-year-old, but like she already had, seen that. I'm sure there's also a genetic factor, but either way, like she was able to read situations at a young age.
That doesn't surprise me one bit. One thing that I've learned about in working with a lot more parents, especially the ones who have little ones, toddlers, they are so incredibly smart. They pick up on everything. They are just sponges. They model behaviors around them. So if they're spending time with just their parents and those parents happen to be effective communicators, they're loving, they are healthy, they have self-awareness, the child is a sponge and a mirror and picks up on all of that. However, the opposite is also true. For example, if you have neglectful parents, whether it was intentional or not, because either they were too busy working or just doing other things, then you will have to be more self-reliant, right? And there's value in that, but you might not have access to some of these other skills, like the child who has the parents who are effective communicators. I can speak from my own experience that my dad had a very distinct way of communicating with others, and I have definitely, whether I've liked it or not, I've adopted some of that. It's part of me. And it takes something to change that if you want to. And I can tell you, in like the almost 20 years that I've known you, your communication has gotten so much better. When I first met you, I genuinely thought you were an asshole. I did. You were a dick. When I met you at the Geek Squad, you were just too cool for school. You had this energy like I don't need anybody, like fuck y'all, and I'm just going to do my thing. And for whatever reason, I liked that because I could tell you were damaged.
Wait, say more about that. What? It was damaged?
You had
And you
issues.
like?
You had issues. And I like people who are unapologetically themselves. You were not trying to be anybody else except for yourself. And I really appreciate that. Now, I still feel like you are that same person where you are still yourself, but you are more sensitive. Am I talking like quackery right now, or do you agree with any of it?
No, I would say I am more present with people. I am less triggered by things that other people say because I just realize that it is, if someone yells at me, it's almost always nothing to do with me.
Right.
I'm also aware enough to know, oh, when it is because of me and I need to do something about that.
You know the difference. How are you able to know the difference? Do you have to really know the person that is yelling?
I feel like you just have to be present because, if like a stranger like yells at me in the parking lot because like I parked like in a way that they didn't like, it's like, okay, that's not really a big deal. So whatever they're reacting about isn't me. If it's like in a job situation where, like I did something that I wasn't supposed to do and I got yelled at, obviously that one's on me, and I need to go deal with that.
When you use the word yell, do you mean it exactly? Is the person literally yelling at you?
No, not like screaming. I suppose yell isn't the right, but like being spoken to in a stern tone.
Yeah, I totally understand. I use that word yell lackadaisically when it's not exactly accurate. That's why I was asking you, what do you see as something you want to work on in your relationships with others?
I think being able to open up more quickly because there is a ramp up, process to me, and it's not like that I have to, but I would like to be the type of person that can just lay it all out there and not guard, not filter.
while at the same time still maintaining healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Because the opposite is also true, right? We can be unguarded and we can be very open and very free and very raw and very vulnerable. But then at least I've discovered that being too vulnerable too quickly can also be dangerous territory because not everybody deserves that.
Yeah. And also just, sometimes it's just unwanted. And that's,
By
with
you or by them?
by them.
Exactly. Just because Charles, for example, wants to open up more doesn't mean we start talking about very sensitive topics with somebody immediately just because you want to. You have to be able to read the room, right?
Yeah.
And that goes back to what you were saying about being present and being able to kind of discern where that person is at, being able to see them without really knowing them. And that includes seeing what you can talk about and what feels comfortable and good for them, and then knowing when something is too much. What other aspect of overall health and like living an optimal, happy lifestyle have we not talked about yet? One thing we haven't talked about, and maybe you were going to say this or you were going to say something else, but community. I feel like this Climb Fit community is something that might be adding some happiness to your life. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think being in community with people is very important for people. And it's not like I was cut off from that, but there have been times in my life where I've just been completely isolated. Like when you met me, I was like, I didn't have very many friends. So like it's always important for me to be in some kind of community.
Why is it important?
Well, I'll just like give you an example. Like I'm at Climb Fit and I want to pick a lesser weight to do an overhead press. And then one of my friends says, "No, you can go up. I believe in you." And and then I do it.
So it sounds like community offers support and encouragement and they push you to be better.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. So, what other aspect of health do you think is something you're working on? Is it romantic relationships? Is it relationship to family? Is it work? Is it therapy? What else?
I think one of the struggles that I've had in my life is like finding a meeting ground for my parents. I'm not talking literally, like a place where we can meet and connect because they're like my mom turned 70. My dad is 72, and they're from a different country. They're from a different generation, so like they don't see life from the same vantage point that I see life, and that can make conversations about anything like difficult. Like whether it's talking about relationships or work or current events. Like they'll say stuff that I'm like, what? And they're not wrong. It's just that they have a point of view from where they grew up and when they grew up that is different than, like when I grew up and how I grew up.
They grew up in Vietnam in what, the 70s, 60s?
Yeah, they were born in the 50s. So they witnessed, I don't know if they're maybe too young, but like they were there at the end of French occupation, and they were there for the Vietnam War, and then they even stayed in Vietnam a little bit after the United States withdrew from Vietnam. So they've seen a lot of conflict. Like their whole, early life was like witnessing war.
And if I remember correctly, they had a pretty cushy lifestyle, both of them. They were both more well-to-do, and then the war happened and they lost everything. And then they eventually made their way to America and they had to start from nothing. They have a very, very different lifestyle from you. And English is not their first language. And you have quite an extensive vocabulary. And so I would imagine that the conversations between you and your parents, they're going to look different and they're going to sound different from the conversations you have with any of your other friends or other people that, number one, English is their first language. And number two, they have more of an extensive vocabulary.
Well, I think this is a common thing that people who speak multiple languages have to deal with is like the act of code switching. Like either with my parents, I have to throw in some words in Vietnamese sometimes, or I have to dumb down my speech. But spoken to other people who have to do this for whatever reason. They speak one way with their family, they speak one way at work. It's a very common experience, and I, I I first heard about code switching because I had a friend who did her grad studies in this topic, and I was like, oh wow, this is what I do.
I had never heard about it before you just saying it right now, but it makes perfect sense. And I mean, I have a little lived experience with that because my mom, I think Tagalog was her first language and her English is really, really strong. But, it took her a long time to be able to come up with like adages and stuff like that. So that's a very unique experience, meeting your parents maybe where they're at. I think part of that is like accepting them as they are and not wanting to change them. Do you feel like your relationship with your parents has gotten better over the years?
It's yeah, like broadly, yes. And there's always challenges because of these differences.
What is one thing that you can do? Like if you were speaking to me right now and I had the same request, like I wanted to improve my relationship with my mom, for example, knowing that what did you call it? Code switching?
Yeah.
I had to do because I do have to do a little bit of that with her. I do. And also because of the slang. Like you can talk with your friends different because you can throw in lots of fun slang. You can say movie lines. It depends on who you're talking to. What would you say to me if I wanted to improve that relationship?
I would say, like the things that they say that might be upsetting to you personally, um, they're not trying to upset you. It's just that they can only view life from the lens that they've currently got, and it takes a lot to see life any other way. So, don't have it be personal. Just like get that they're bringing their baggage, and then you've got your baggage.
Yeah, because we've got our stuff too.
Yeah,
We're
we
not
like we
perfect.
all we all you live long enough, like that 3-year-old that I saw at coffee's got like next to no baggage. But we've been in,
Yet.
living for decades and decades. We got a lot of it.
Yeah. And I said yet with the 3-year-old because I want the 3-year-old to stay as pure and as possible and have the best life. But part of life is like being messy and failing and falling and getting a little asphalt in your knee, if you will. That's part of life. That's the beauty of life is you need to have those experiences because they make you who you are. And you can either, let them control you, or you can rise above, you can get up, you can dust yourself off, so to speak, and grow as a person. And I feel in the time that I've known you, you've grown so much, and I appreciate you sharing all of your insights. I'm so freaking proud of where you're at now. I hope that you continue on this path and I just appreciate you as you are. I'm still going to be your friend, even if you stop working out and if you eat like shit, we'll still be best friends, okay?
Thank you. And I appreciate that you never, regardless of where I'm at, there's always compassion, but you always like push me to be a better version of myself.
I feel like that's like community, right?
Yeah.
Really good friends that push each other, also keep it real and let us know when we need a little push and sometimes it's not as kind or compassionate because I know that I can be a little blunt, but the intention is there. The good intention of wanting you to be the best version of yourself is always there. So, awesome. Thank you, Charles.